of course, I'm sad because of my husband, but I'm also sad because for our country, unless we can get over this and have enough people out there say, while I may not agree with everything the Democrats are for or the Republicans are for, I do agree that our democracy is important and that we must protect it. It is a model to the world.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi speaking out in depth for the first time about the attack on her husband, Paul, and about what's at stake tomorrow. And she said the brutal attack will impact her decision about staying in Democratic leadership. 12 years ago, Democratic Senator Evan Bayh revealed why he was leaving Congress. Quote, "It's difficult to work with members actively plotting your demise." That's much darker than those just looking to beat you in the polls. Former Indiana Senator and Secretary of State Evan Bayh joins me now. Senator, always good to see you. When you were in Congress, you socialized with members on the other side of the aisle. You cheered their kids on at Little League games. But you left office in part because you said decency and civility was gone or going away. That was 12 years ago. How do you assess where we are now?
Stephanie, it's good to be back on your program. Unfortunately, I think things have gotten worse, even worse in the last 12 years, from what I hear from my friends and colleagues who still serve in Congress. And the demonization of our political opponents seems to just get more extreme with the passage of time. I think more members of Congress now feel as if they're rewarded for saying and doing outrageous things, including demonizing individuals, which probably led to the attack on the Speaker's husband, regrettably. They get more clicks on their social media. They see money coming in on their online fundraising. And so it's just a cycle that perpetuates itself. And it's regrettable. So I think it's gotten worse in the last 12 years.
Then realistically, do you foresee anything that could change that?
Yes, your viewers can change that. We all can change that. We need to stop rewarding people who just tear down the system and run nothing but negative ads. They tell us what they're against, but what are they for? We need to support candidates who realize that at the end of the day, even though we're liberals and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans, more than anything, we're Americans. We need to support those kind of candidates, and I would urge all of us, vote in primaries. Vote in primaries. Not enough people do, and so we tend to get candidates on the extremes rather than those who are willing to work together to try and bridge differences somewhere in the middle. And the last thing I'd say, Stephanie, is that things will change when we realize that the word compromise is actually an act of statesmanship and not some sort of moral failing or a sellout to the other side, because in a system of checks and balances like ours, the only thing we get anything done is by having principled compromise.
So I appreciate and applaud every point that you're making, but I have to turn it and get to the dark reality where we are. $16 billion was just spent on these midterms, largely on negative ads run by super PACs. Given that's the state of things, how do you pull back? Right? I just talked to a Democratic candidate tonight who said, I'm not just running against a Republican. What I'm really running against is dark money super PACs.
Well, that's right. And unfortunately, it was this Supreme Court case called Citizens United that threw open the doors to this sort of thing. We're unfortunately not going to be able to change the Supreme Court anytime soon, and a constitutional amendment, very difficult to pull off. So, and it gets back that they're playing us, Stephanie, because it's basic human psychology. There's something about fear and concern that motivates people more than hope and an uplifting message. And we have to understand that that's not right. And reward candidates, again, who appeal to the best in us, not those darker fears that you're talking about, because I'm like the rest of your viewers. I turn on the TV these days, and it's one negative ad after another. You'd think that we'd opened up the prisons and the insane asylums and we're running these people for high public office. And that's not true. So at the end of the day, as Harry Truman once said, he said, in the United States of America, it's not the politicians who run the country. It's the people. The politicians, they're just the hired help. So these folks work for us, and we shouldn't keep rehiring them if they behave in ways that are shameful and actually tear down the very fabric of our democracy, because that's what's happening.
But that's the thing, right? The truth matters, but only if you hear it. Right now, Democrats are actively running on trying to save or preserve our democracy. Republicans are running on culture war issues that are rooted in fear. But many of these culture war issues have no basis of truth, right? Case in point, there are no litter boxes in schools. There wasn't, there were, there's never going to be. Is there a point where voters realize they're just this is fear-mongering. They're being lied to. They're being trained to be scared. At some point, will they stop falling for this nonsense?
Well, God willing, and the best antidote to lies and falsehoods and conspiracies is the truth. And we just need to keep hammering away that these candidates who just divide, and tear down really have nothing to offer your viewers who are concerned about the cost of living, who are concerned about the fabric of our democracy, or safe neighborhoods, or their children's education. We need candidates who focus on solutions, not just cheap political tactics to gain high public office, and then they do nothing once they get there. So, people who run for office on the basis of all or nothing shouldn't be surprised if we end up with nothing. And so, we just have to stop rewarding people like that. I know it's easier said than done, but hopefully, after enough elections that disappoint all of us, we'll wake up and realize we need something better. We need candidates who are better.
It seems like every day, the number one question from reporters to Republican candidates is, will you accept the election results? You were once Indiana's Secretary of State. Did you ever expect this is where we'd be? The night before the midterms, 4 governors from Pennsylvania urging candidates to accept the results, urging candidates to participate in a peaceful transfer of power?
No, never. My first act as Secretary of State, Stephanie, we had the closest congressional race in the country decided in Indiana that year, and I had to cast the deciding vote. It was only 46 votes separated the 2 candidates, and it was a split vote. The Democrat voted for the Democrat, the Republican voted for the Republican on the recount commission. As Secretary of State, they turned to me, and I said, we're going to count the votes. That had the effect of electing the Republican, because it was the right thing to do. The sanctity of people's votes, even if I supported the other candidate, which I did, the sanctity of people's votes was more important than anything. So it is a dangerous thing. The most important thing I'm going to say tonight is it's a dangerous thing in our country when a significant percentage of the American people only accept the outcome of an election if their preferred candidate wins. A democracy can't function like that. We have to have some area of common respect and for the outcome and the wishes of our fellow citizens, and some forbearance, some restraint, even by those in power who could do the wrong thing, but know that that's no way to govern. So, I'm very surprised and dismayed that it's something like accepting the results of an election should be considered to be a big deal. That should be the bare minimum that we can count on in this country.
Without decency, without respect, we've got nothing.